But really quick, I want to talk to you guys about Tilt. It is one of the more complex stories in the industry, but also one of the more revenue-producing and soon-to-be more profitable stories in the industry. So hopefully I have your attention and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what we do. In short, we say we're a partner for cannabis businesses. Tilt is different from most companies in the sector in that we are B2B focused. Our job really is to help businesses throughout the ecosystem run more efficiently. And for us, we think that puts ourselves in the center of this large and growing industry. Tilt was formed through a four-way merger. So there's a number of different businesses, each helping business owners in the sector in one way or another, and we came together to offer this suite of services under a single umbrella. It's really hard to run a cannabis business. It's really hard to scale one across the country with state borders. And what we've done is really put together all those different tools and services that they need in one place. So today, even though Tilt is new and only went public in December, the companies within Tilt have been around for 3, 4, 5 years. And as a result, we already have 1,500 clients across the country and internationally. We're also almost 600 employees, and we're doing real revenue. We posted $31 million of pro forma revenue for Q4, which makes us one of the largest revenue producing companies amongst US publicly listed companies. So today our market cap is still under $1 billion Canadian, partly because we're new to the market and partly because we have a confusing story. But again, the hope is that as we continue to post results and share what we're doing and actually show what we're doing, we think that'll change pretty quickly. Our leadership team is extraordinarily strong and also very reflective of who we are and what we do. So I mentioned Tilt was formed through a four-way merger. We've since acquired 3 or 4 other businesses. Should come as no surprise that our CEO is a private equity guy. He ran Citicorp Venture Capital and has 30 years of private equity experience. So M&A, which is very core to this industry, as maybe there was a little bit of news late last night that came out about a small potential acquisition, but I think that sets us up really well. Our COO, Harvard undergrad, Stanford graduate, 30 years of international manufacturing experience, a real operator, COO. And our CFO was the CFO of GE Industrial Solutions, so $1 billion division within GE. So real leadership team. But then also for each of the different businesses we acquire, we take their management team. So Mark Scatterday invented the first ever electronic cigarette that was disposable at Enjoy. He since founded Jupiter Research, which sold $77 million worth of vape pens last year to all of the leading MSOs and brands and small guys across the country. He now leads that division for us. Tim Conder started a distribution company called Blackbird that now touches 95% of the product in the state of Nevada. We're taking that model, rolling it up and down California and soon across the rest of the country. Gary Smith was the co-CEO of Red Bull in the early 2000s. He took the job when no one knew what Red Bull was in the US, and he got it into every 7-Eleven and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar market here in the US. So a real leadership team. Myself, I co-founded and was the CEO of Baker Technologies, a software company we started 5 years ago for the sector. Today, Baker is in almost 1 out of every 3 dispensaries across the country. And that's really Tilt's foothold into working with all these businesses and turning them to clients of ours. And then in the back with me is Kevin McCluskey, who ran the middle markets group at Deutsche Bank. He's our capital markets guy. So if you have questions about the stock, he's the guy to go to. So very quickly, if you think about the industry, the way we think about the industry is the United States, is really where the bulk of the revenue is going to come. In simple numbers, we think it's going to be a $100 billion market in not too long, of which $90 billion is yet to be realized. So when we think about what Tilt's vision is, it's really to make money, and as much of it as possible. And the way we think to do that isn't to necessarily be the brand or be the retailer. There are 4,000 retailers right now. The largest MSO has maybe 40 stores open. That's 1% of the market. Even as you combine all of the MSOs, they still make up less than 10% of all the retail stores. Likewise on the brands, everyone says we're going to build the best vape pen company. Well, maybe, but there's thousands of different vape pen brands. What we do is a different approach. We work with all of the retailers, over 1,000 of them. We sell hardware to all of the vape pen companies. And so for us, it's really a rising tide. And that's what we've done is position Tilt to capture as much of this revenue as possible as the industry grows. There's no doubt about the demand. It's just a question of how you're positioned to capture it. So talk a little bit about MSO, which everyone mentions here. Tilt is an MSO in that we operate in multiple states. We have sales and operations in 40 of them, offices in 6, and we touch the plants in over 3 or 4 and do distribution in another 2 or 3. But different from most MSOs in that, again, the goal isn't to promote our own chain of retail stores or our own brand of products. Actually, if you look at the top 8 or 10 publicly listed MSOs, they're all sort of competitive with one another. They're all clients of ours. Almost all of them use Tilt in one way or another. They buy their vape pens from us. We do their distribution. We do their last mile delivery. Their software, their stores are running our software. But then don't forget about the other 5,000 or 6,000 small businesses, all the other brands, all the other independent mom and pop dispensaries. They're part of the number that's going to get to that $100 billion in revenue, and they're largely overlooked. They're not at conferences like these. You can't buy their stock, but we're generating revenue with them and we're helping them. And that's how Tilt is a little bit different. So we really break down our solutions into those two buckets, brand support and retail support, offering these different services and solutions. And I'll talk briefly about each of them as we go through. But on the brand support, it's really that turnkey solution, everything you need to build and run a brand, and more importantly, to scale it across state lines. So in markets where it's really hard to get product, we grow it. We have a facility in Massachusetts that's growing some of the best cannabis in the state, and it's going to be over a full 100,000 square feet of canopy operational by the end of this year. With the current wholesale prices, that's a run rate of over $200 million worth of cannabis that we're growing just out of Massachusetts. We also have a processing license there. We're not only manufacturing our own oils, but we're doing it on behalf of many other companies that are operating in the market, and also brands and other businesses that are out of the state that are looking to enter it. So not only can we provide you the material, but then the hardware. Obviously, we own Jupiter, so that's easy, but we can do all the manufacturing. We have the extraction technology. We can give you your packaged SKU. But that's not even the hard part, right? A lot of people can do that contract manufacturing. The secret sauce is getting it on shelves. And that's really where our differentiation comes in, is that we already have over 1,000 dispensaries across 33 states that we're working with. We already have 800 dispensaries that we're already doing distribution to, where we have trucks showing up every week stocking their shelves. And that enables us to help brands reach new customers, open up new markets, and get onto different stores. And then on the retail support, again, everything from a full turnkey solution to a la carte bits and pieces. So 1,000 stores using lightweight software, several hundred stores, maybe that we're doing distribution for, but a few dozen stores that we provide the entire suite of services for. We actually do this program called our inclusion program, where we're working with minority candidates who are part of economic empowerment movements in states like Massachusetts, helping them get into business. Because getting a license is just step one. Then you need to find $1 million. You need to figure out how to do local site selection, deal with the fun little towns and municipalities to get approved to open your store. Then you got to figure out what software to use. That's easy. You should use ours. And then you got to figure out what products to carry. We have data on what you should be carrying and how you should be pricing it. And so providing this entire suite of services means we can work with hundreds and thousands of retailers, working as shallow as just selling software or as deep as really helping them run their business. Again, monetizing a much broader section than just as many stores as we would be able to own ourselves. More importantly, it means we're not competitive with our own customers, right? We enable ourselves truly as B2B focused. So as we jump into each of these different sectors, Jupiter Research is first, primarily because of their revenue. They did $77 million last year alone. Canaccord projects them to do close to $200 million this year. Again, and that's just on their own. What we're starting to do now is take our network of clients and offer them their own custom branded hardware. So if you're a small dispensary owner that's not vertically integrated, how would you like to sell your own brand in your store instead of just third parties? We can make you a vape pen with your name and your logo on it. As a matter of fact, if it's in a state that we have a processing license in, we can even fill it for you. So again, these are just the different ways we can continue to unlock revenue with the synergies from our different business units. Next up is the software. This is really interesting because it's a very easy way to add value. So Baker, the software business, helps dispensaries make money and they can see it. So within the first 6 weeks, they typically pay for their entire year contract. And after that, they just see additional revenue that they can directly attribute to software. But it also means we have some really interesting data that we can leverage and help these dispensaries make money by being smart. So if there's a blizzard on Saturday, you can send a note out on Friday to all of your customers reminding them to come stock up before the weekend. Then when sales are really slow on Saturday, you don't lose that money because you doubled your average daily sales on Friday. It also means we can help them understand what products they should be carrying and how to price it because we know the transactional data, which then we can in turn use ourselves as we figure out and help our brands do contract manufacturing, making sure they're making the right products in the right markets. What's really popular in California might not be so popular in Massachusetts. People don't have nearly the same tolerance yet in the Northeast. And so again, looking at the data can make sure you're not wasting time manufacturing the wrong SKUs. And then on the distribution side, again, this is where we can actually physically stock shelves, which is a tremendous advantage. The same way route truck drivers are coveted by every brand in the real CPG world, it's the same thing, right? So once you're showing up at the door every week, it's a tremendous opportunity to help put additional products and services in front of these customers. We also offer last mile delivery, right? In our mind, retail margins are going to come down, right? Prices aren't going to be where they are forever. And as more and more people get familiar with the products, they don't need to go into the store and smell 10 different things or talk to a bud tender for 20 minutes. So as delivery becomes more and more prevalent, we're positioned to access the customer. Similarly to the way Uber Eats does delivery for restaurants who don't want to deal with it themselves, if you're a dispensary owner and you're good at running your dispensary, you probably don't want to hire a bunch of drivers, go buy a bunch of cars, deal with insurance, deal with logistics, deal with tracking software, and figure out how to do delivery. Just pay us to do it. Again, this is another example of ways we can provide this B2B solution to our network of businesses. I mentioned cultivation. Yes, we do very much touch the plant, and we do cultivate only in markets where we have to. But we found out a way to do it in a very capital-intensive and fast-to-market. So we use these prefabricated modular units that we can build in a fraction of the time at less than half the cost and get up and running. And so, yeah, in 5 years, Massachusetts prices may come down, but it doesn't matter. Because for each one of these units that we build, for $180,000 to build one of them, we can do $1.8 million in cannabis that first year. So if prices come down in 3 years, we don't care. It's paid for itself 30 times over. And again, this enables us to be very nimble as we open up different markets. And then lastly is the actual research side of it. So right now, there's still a lot of unknowns in the space after a 30-year plus blackout of real research. And so we've hired a team of geneticists to help us actually understand the plant. This helps us figure out which strains are most effective for which desired effects. We don't think AK-47 and Blue Dream and now GG, because Gorilla Glue won't let them use the name anymore, are going to persist forever. And so what we've done is worked on making you products based on what you're looking to feel, whether it's have a good time out, stay in, alleviate pain, reduce stress. We definitely aren't focused on medical, but medicinal. And for us, that's really where we see the bulk of this market going. But as a business guy, where the rubber hits the road is that if our geneticists can help us find a plant that has an extra 10% yield, I told you we're doing $200 million out of Massachusetts on a run rate basis by the end of the year, that more than pays for the team of geneticists and any fancy equipment they might have, right? If you're limited to a certain square foot of canopy, but you can increase your pounds per foot by 10%, that's worth paying the scientists to let them run their experiments. So that's really it. That's the ecosystem. It starts with the plant and it ends at the consumer. And if you think about what we just talked about, we are touching the product every step of the way. We are capturing data every step along the way. But more importantly, we're monetizing the ecosystem every step of the way. People say they're vertically integrated. That usually means they grow their own product, they process it themselves, and they sell it at their own stores under their own brands. Well, that's great. You're vertically integrated in the 0.1% of the market that you own. We're vertically integrated across a third of the market, which means we're positioned to capture as much or more revenue, in our opinion, than anyone else out there. And we're already showing it with our $31 million Q4. So we can talk a little bit about international. We are in the Montreal or Quebec room or something. We do have a facility up in Powell River. For us, again, the goal isn't to be a large-scale cultivator, but this will become interesting with the dealer's license. Help us take some of that genetic research we're doing and do some international import-export, as well as on the processing side. So as we think about what the future looks like in Canada with these value-added products, we're positioned to participate. We also have a European strategy, which is continuing to evolve. Obviously, there's a lot of people there, and so we're thinking about it, but it's not in our forecast and not something that we spend too much time talking about to the public. We do want you to know that we're thinking about it. And then M&A, right? So obviously, again, we've been fairly prolific so far. For us, we have a very capital-light approach to M&A. Instead of buying a $30 million retail store and hoping we can increase it 20% next year and paying a very large multiple for it, we buy a $2 million processing license, and then we leverage the 100 trucks and the 200 retail stores that are already our clients in that market to do $10 million of revenue. Our cost to entry is way lower. Our multiple on what we can do in revenue is way lower because it actually ends up looking more like organic growth than bought growth. And so here's just a list of some of the states that we've announced we have either under LOI or are working closely towards. And then on the capital market side, again, we're new. You go to Bloomberg and you look us up, we have not even posted our first full quarter yet. And so that's part of the reason our market cap is depressed. It's really hard to do research on us, and we understand that. We've announced we're just 2 weeks away from announcing our full Q4 in 2018 audited. At that point, we think there's going to be a lot more movement. We're going to start to get a lot more coverage from analysts, and people are going to be able to do their own homework on who we are. And the numbers are real. Again, that's why we leaked that $31 million top line number, and we're very excited to share Q1 shortly thereafter. So the real number of shares outstanding right now is 358 million. It is confusing, like most of our peers, when you deal with these compressed shares, but it's not nefarious. We did it because we didn't want to have two different classes of stock. So even though it may seem complicated, the reality is we did it for the right reasons. And so again, as this becomes more clear and as more information comes out, we're really excited for the market to understand who we are and what we're doing. So that's it. If you leave with any key takeaways, just think that even though Tilt may be new or new to you, we're already working with over 1,500 companies. We already did $31 million last quarter, and we're different. We're not your typical MSO. We're a B2B company. We are working with brands. We're working with retailers. We're providing them all the tools and services that they need to run their business. And in the process, we're becoming one of the largest revenue companies in the sector. Thanks. I promised I'd be fast, so 2 minutes of Q&A. Otherwise, please come find me. Yes?
Hold on. Just in regards to Blackbird Holdings, you guys made the acquisition for $50 million, $10 million cash, and 40 in stock. Like, how do you guys justify that a company that went bankrupt 2 years prior is worth $50 million?
So the really great thing about our business model is, again, it's about network effects. You could say the same thing about Baker, the software company I founded. You know, the business is in 1,000 dispensaries, but we're only charging a few $100s per month. Where does this come from? But again, if you think about our business model, it's about unlocking revenue from the network, from all the stores that we have. And doing distribution and physically bringing products to stores is proving to be wildly successful as we think about helping new brands enter different markets. And so if you're a brand in California and you want to move into Nevada, you can find a contract manufacturer, then you can try to find someone else who has access to different stores, but they don't really exist. Blackbird sort of has a stranglehold on that market. And so that gives us a unique opportunity to sell tens of millions of dollars worth of products to stores all throughout the state. It also helps us in other areas of our business. So if you think about Jupiter Hardware, right now they were drop shipping to every single customer. Well, now they just ship it to the Blackbird distribution center. And so when Blackbird goes to Select to pick up $100,000 worth of filled vape pens and then drop them off around 40 different dispensaries, instead of showing up with an empty truck, they now show up with a truck full of unfilled Jupiter pens. And now Jupiter doesn't have to worry about doing their own distribution. So as these different business models come together, you get exponential growth in revenue. And so it's really just thinking strategically about the different pieces. Yeah, so the last part is not correct. It's very much designed specifically for cannabis. As a matter of fact, they started from Mark's background because electronic cigarettes, which were being purposed for cannabis oil, don't work. Your PGVG e-cig liquid is very different than cannabis oil. It's like milk versus molasses, and so they didn't work. And so Mark actually helped design and figure out a product that was specifically manufactured for cannabis, which is why they're doing so well. We posted 15%, not 10, gross margins in Q4, and that was before these businesses were integrated. So yes, of course, there was no benefit from synergy because the acquisitions actually didn't happen until January. And so part of what we're doing this year is going to continue to improve those gross margins. Furthermore, as more and more of our revenue comes from the sale of cannabis out of Massachusetts and other markets, our margins will drastically be pulled up. Right now, the bulk of our revenue is coming from hardware, and hardware does have very different margins than cannabis businesses. But the last thing I'll leave you with is that a lot of businesses like to tout how great their gross margins are, but then they lose a ton of money. I'm excited to share, as our EBITDA numbers come out, I think you'll see that while our overall gross margins may be a little lower, we actually have a much clearer path towards profitability. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.